Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be doing a look through, an unboxing I guess you could say, and just sort of giving my thoughts on the D&D 4th Edition Essentials Monster Vault box set. I've already done videos in the past looking at things like the Dungeon Master's kit, which was one of my favorite box sets of all time for quite a while actually, until somewhat recently. But this is another one of the D&D Essentials product line items, and this was one of the last major things to come out for it. This is your Monster Manual book, along with some other goodies thrown in there as well. As many of you know, I'm sort of a sucker for box sets anyway, so that's one of the main reasons that I was really enamored with the 4th edition D&D Essentials product line, because they just had, several really good quality box sets, and this is certainly one of them. So we'll go ahead and take a look here. So this is, Dungeons & Dragons Essentials, Monster Vault, a horde of iconic creatures for any campaign. And then on the back here, it just says monsters ready to play right out of the box. This essential supplement for Dungeon Masters collects the most iconic monsters of the Dungeons & Dragons fantasy role-playing game in one handy box, presents all new variants of such beloved monsters as dragons, orcs, and vampires. The monsters featured herein are easy for Dungeon Masters to use and fun for players to fight. In addition to combat statistics, all monsters come with story information to help DMs incorporate them into their adventures, and cardstock tokens to use on battle maps. So the contents of this book are a 320-page book of monsters, the Cairn of the Winter King, a 32-page adventure featuring monsters from this box, a double-sided fold-out battle map, and 10 sheets of cut-out monster tokens. And this retailed back in 2010, I believe is when this came out. Yeah, 2010. Retailed for $29.99 US or $35 Canadian. So pretty decent value for your money, especially back then. So opening it up here, we have inside the pretty standard insert for the box sets of this era. So we have the D&D Essentials line sort of advertisement here, which has the products for the Dungeon Master on one side, and then products aimed towards the players on the other side, which is great. We also have the Cairn of the Winter King adventure. So this is an adventure for 4th level characters. And this was, I never got to run this adventure, which was a bit of a shame, because I always really, kind of like this one. And if this is the one that I'm thinking that it is, there was one scene where the characters, I can't remember if this is the one or not, but I think there was one where they enter a room and it's set up sort of like a banquet hall, where they can eat, like there's all this food there, and as they start eating it, they realize that it's actually like an illusion, and they're actually eating like really bad spoiled meat. I think that's the thing, or just this really gross way of looking at it. So I don't remember, I think this is the one, but I just remember that the whole adventure was one that I was really looking forward to reading, or to running, but never got a chance to do it, unfortunately, and then I ended up moving away, and that pretty much killed any opportunities I had to do that. So one of the things that was also I really liked about the adventure structures back in the day is that they would give you a lot of the descriptions and stuff, like the maps and things like that you could look at, but then they would give you like the tactical encounters as sort of a separate part altogether, which anyway, I just thought it was a really great way of sort of doing it, because each encounter had like a page or 2-page write-up that really made it easy to run. So it's just another kind of nice aspect of it. But anyway, so we have, like I said, the adventure here, and then on the back we have just the actual full map of the dungeon. Now, all the dungeon tile sets were also out by the time this released. So that's one of the reasons why when we get to the double-sided map here, and I don't know if I'm going to have room to unfold the whole thing or show it all in one shot, just because like the table that I have is a bit cramped right now for stuff, but there's only certain areas of the map that they show. So like you don't get the entire dungeon on the one map. as you can see, there's quite a bit missing. So it looks like we just sort of get this section up to about here. Yeah, up to about here. We just sort of get this section here on one side, and then we have the initial encounter, which has this this ship, this like sky ship, coming in and dropping off just a slew of undead, and then I guess inviting them, the characters, to the Hall of the Winter King. So anyway, the maps themselves were really nice, and like I said, there was a little bit of cross promotion here as well. So the fact that the adventure didn't include the full dungeon map is a bit of a shame, but at the same time, they wanted to help boost sales of the tiles, and like I said, the tiles essentially created the entire dungeon. So if you had the 3 tile sets, then you could make this entire dungeon yourself. So that's sort of the idea behind that. And then we have one of the main aspects of this set, and these are the 10 sheets of of just punch out tokens. So these are just 2-dimensional flat tokens that you would place on your battle map. They don't have stands or anything like that. They're not quite the same thing as like the Pathfinder pawns. But this was a really great inclusion nonetheless. And if you're running a game where everyone's sitting at, a table and they're sort of over top of the maps anyway, it works perfectly fine. The time that I was running 4th edition, we were sort of just scattered around the living room, and I don't even know if I had. Yeah, I had a coffee table at the time, but it just wasn't really large enough for most things, so I would just draw a map on grid paper and use it to track everyone's movements from round to round. But yeah, so here we have these tokens. Now, the cool thing about this is in 4th edition you had what was called the Bloodied Condition. So if your hit point total was reduced to half of your maximum or below, you were considered bloodied. And there are several abilities that relied on that or were triggered when you reached that point. For example, dragons would have what's called Bloodied Breath. So if they got reduced to half their hit points or less, as like an immediate reaction, they'd be able to use their breath weapon as sort of like a desperation type of attack. Other creatures or other classes had abilities that relied on the Bloodied Condition as well. So with these tokens, you have just the normal tokens on one side, but if you flip them over, it's the same token artwork on the other side, but they have this red ring around them. So when they became bloodied, you would just flip the token over so that the players would recognize the fact that that's the condition that they were in. And I thought it was sort of a smart thing to do, and it was just a nice little touch. Other sets had sort of like double-sided tokens, especially I think the starter set had like double-sided ones where they were different on each side. But the Dungeon Master's kit, I believe, and this one for sure had these ones where you could flip them over to show that the creature was bloodied, which was pretty cool. So just take a little look at the sheets there. Now, there are going to be some missing from this set because I had used them in another 4th edition game that I was running, so they are most likely in one of the Ziploc bags that is in my starter set box. So that's why there's some missing. It's not that I've lost them; it's just that I used them and put them in with just all the other tokens that I was using at the time. So, like I said, you're going to see a few missing here, but there we got the bloodied side as well. Another cool thing that they included was this black ring that you see here. So you had pawns of, I think that the 3 sizes that they really had in this one, or I shouldn't say the pawns, but the tokens, they had like a small, medium, large, and huge. Now, some creatures had stat blocks for members of, or creatures from that group that may be large or huge. So they actually had this black ring that you could use, and if you take a look, I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but there we go, you can kind of see it there. So the token that's inside is actually a separate token from the ring itself. So if you advanced a creature from large size to huge, for example, then you could pop their large size token into the middle of one of these rings, and it worked really well. It was just it was a good solution, a good workaround, and a way to cut down on the number of duplicates that they would have of varying sizes. So I thought that was another cool touch there. So going through, there we have the Lich. Of course, we have our giants, gelatinous cube. Just again, some awesome stuff in here. Another one of these, and then of course the black dragon. I still love the way that black dragons are designed. They're just some of my favorite looking ones, although that red dragon's also pretty gosh dang awesome. So yeah, we got another one that I was using there. One of these days I'm going to have to go through and separate out the tokens to see what we have. But that's something that I'll do another day. I can't remember what that one was, but that's okay. I'm sure there are online resources or other unboxing videos I could hopefully find that would show what they are, but like I said, I know I have them. They're just in a bag with a whole bunch of other ones that were punched out and used. So I got Purple Worm, Fire Giant, the Treant. It's like a Troll Warrior or Troll King. And of course, one of my favorite monsters of all time, the Beholder. There's also ones here for minions, and I actually want to do a video one of these days talking about minions, because that's something I'm actually looking to bring over into my 5th edition game, because I think that the monster structures of like minion, standard, elite, and solo monsters I thought was a great addition to the 4th edition game. So like I said, I'll probably talk about that in a separate one, but again, they were really cool. So they were just essentially used as like fodder troops, but they padded out an encounter to have it so that there's just more impressive numbers. But they were really easy to take out. So like for player characters, they could mow through them pretty easily. So they were like I said, they were just enough of a threat that you couldn't completely ignore them. But they were super easy to run, but they just made for more interesting encounters, I feel. And there we got our last sheet there. So those were the tokens, and then the last item in the box is the actual Monster Vault book. So with this, it did sort of rebalance some of the original Monster Manual monsters that we had from the original 4th edition hardcover. Since there were some issues with the especially higher level monsters not necessarily being tough enough to stand up to parties of appropriate levels. At least that's what I've heard from... I've heard a lot of people say that, but I've also heard people say the opposite, so I can't say for sure why they decided to sort of rebalance or adjust some of these stat blocks, because I wasn't able to personally experience games where they were, high level or things like that. But anyway, so we'll go through. Again, it's another nice pocketbook-sized product, which, I have to say I really, really loved the pocketbook sort of style with D&D Essentials. I just recently got into collecting the 1st edition Pathfinder pocketbook editions, and I don't know, there's just something about these that I absolutely love. And actually, this book, now that I'm thinking about it, this book would be the easiest way for me to determine which which tokens I need to get. So the first little bit just gives you information about how to read a creature stat block, the different powers or different abilities that they could use, things like that, and then we get into the actual stats themselves. But again, you actually get a lot of information about quite a few of these monsters. The stat block is also really nicely organized, in my opinion. I actually really liked the 4th edition style stat blocks, which they did carry over pretty well into 5th edition, but I just like the way these ones look a little bit better. But it also shows the token that you would use for the creature as well. So, like I said, the easiest thing for me to do would be to go through this book and just see which tokens I'm missing. So we got our angels here, and I'm not going to go through necessarily every single page, but again, you see a lot of just, it's It's always great for me, personally. One of the things I really love about some of these books is just to read information on the creatures more so than just their stat blocks. And this book, I think, does a really good job of that. So you actually get a pretty decent write-up for a lot of the things. I mean, there's like a full page write-up on the Boule, and I don't know how many. I've never really seen any DMs delve too much into their history, but they actually include that stuff here, which I think is really, really cool. Carrion crawler. So, and again, there's also some really nice artwork in these. Of course, you got the Death Knight, another one of my favorite creatures to use. And a couple different ones there. So yeah, I mean, overall, this is just a really awesome book, and again, fantastic art, lots of great information. It's just a fun read, unlike a lot of other monster books that tend to be relatively dry or to the point of just here's the stat block and here's a little smidgen of information. But this one actually gives you quite a bit to go off of, which I think is great. And again, just some beautiful artwork in these books, and I think that's one of the more underappreciated or understated things about 4th edition, is they had some really, really great artwork. Just I really liked the art style that they had overall. So yeah, so again, we got quite a few different creatures in here. Lots of great stuff, lots of great information. This was an awesome set. I remember this was one of those items where I marked the release date on my calendar. And the day that this was scheduled to come out, back during the time that these things were releasing, my days off every week happened to line up with when new stuff like this would come out. So I remember going to my local mall, taking a taxi in because I wanted to be there as early as possible, waiting outside the bookstore, and then going in the second that they opened to pick this up, and then immediately hopping on the bus to get home, grabbing some breakfast along the way, and just eating. And then I spent just the day looking through this and just reading some of the really, again, awesome information that I wish more monster books would dedicate a decent amount of time. I mean, just like look at how much information they give you on the Sturge. It was something that they certainly didn't have to do, but it's just great to have that kind of information to read off of and get inspired by. And again, it's one of the more understated things I think about the 4th edition products, especially with this one in particular, that they went into that level of detail. Like, I can't say that all of the monster books did that, but this one certainly did. And overall, this was just an awesome set. One of my favorites to get. Overall, I would say that I liked the DM's kit just a little bit more, but that's just because of the inclusion of the screen, the 2 adventure books, but this was an awesome set that I just absolutely loved and adored, and this was one of the tipping points that really got me interested in 4th edition. Like this, the Essentials kit, the Essentials product line was what really started to do it for me. But just having all of these, the sets, having the level of information or detail that was thrown into the monster descriptions in this book alone was just really, really awesome stuff. And again, it was a very solid product line, and one that I really wish more people would have been willing to give a chance, because I think that a lot of individuals missed out on one of the better box sets that has been released, especially during the Wizards of the Coast era. I would dare say up until the 5th edition Essentials kit, which is interesting that the Essentials product once again helped raise the bar for Wizards of the Coast. But it's interesting that like I said, I think just people missed out on some really amazing stuff from the D&D Essentials line in general. So here we go. That is the Monster Vault. So that is the last of the Essentials branded box sets that I have for 4th edition to go through, but I do have a few other box sets or some other products that I'd like to go through as well from 4th edition, as well as some other stuff from some of the earlier editions that I'd like to go through too and sort of revisit at some point or to rediscover. Where we have the pandemic situation, I guess I should say, giving me an opportunity to spend a little time with some of these old friends. So let me know in the comments below if any of you picked up the Essentials products back when they first came out. What were your thoughts on them, especially the Monster Vault? Like, what were some of your favorite monsters that you read up on in the book, or what are your experiences with the adventure included? I do want to do a separate review for the adventure at some point. I haven't read that in almost a decade now, but it would be fun to go back and do that. But yeah, overall, an awesome set, and I wish this would have found its way to more people. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.